everyone. How are you guys doing? I hope you guys are feeling, pretty good, especially during these times. Elections just happened. That was pretty stressful. Hope y'all voted if you can. You know. Also, we have the pandemic, of course, that's still going on. So please wear your masks, people. And if you're a student and forced to do online schooling, I feel it. It's so stressful. Oh my goodness. I feel you. It's a struggle. Anyways, thank you for joining our podcast. Again, like I mentioned before, we are Cine Gang. If y'all don't know what that is, that's actually a Filipino stew dish. The meat could be pork, the meat could be fish. But one thing is for sure, it is always delish. That's right. I'm getting hungry over here. I don't know about y'all. Uh, Before we get started with our podcast, we just wanted to introduce ourselves. First, my name is Louise. My pronouns are she, her. I'm 22 years old, and I'm a fourth year biology major at UC Riverside.
All right. Hello, my name is RVK. My pronouns are he, him, and I am a neuroscience student at UCR.
And my name is Kirt. My pronouns are he, him as well. I am 18 years old and I'm a first year nursing science student.
Hi, my name is Zoe. My pronouns are she, her. I'm 14 years old. I'm a freshman in high school, and I currently go to Citrus High School.
Okay, period. As you can see, we're all pretty diverse here, but we all come from Filipino backgrounds, so hope you guys.
Yes, Filipinos.
Yep.
Okay, so why are we
Anyway.
doing this podcast? First of all, we wanted to advertise the mental health workshop with Francis and Nicole, our internship mentors. And all about the internship of that, this program is called Kapag Kabataan, and we are based in the Inland Empire. And our main goal is to spread mental health awareness in the Filipino communities, primarily towards the younger teen Filipino youth. And in our podcast, we are going to be discussing how we're but we're really tired of the stigma when it comes to talking about depression and mental health within our Filipino backgrounds, Filipino families, Filipino community. And yeah. And our podcast is called Okay Lang Kung Hindi Ka Okay, and it's about confronting the enduring effects of US colonization about Filipino mental health. And before we talk about the effects of US colonization on Filipino American health, let's learn more about the history behind of it. And that's going to be Zoe.
Hi, this is going to be a section on U.S. Philippines colonization. American settlement in the Philippines began during the Spanish colonial period. The period of American colonization of the Philippines lasted roughly 48 years, fighting for Philippine independence. After achieving independence in 1946, many Americans chose to remain in the Philippines while maintaining relations with relatives in the U.S. The U.S. invaded the Philippines, which was then governed by Spain as the Spanish East Indies during the Spanish-American War. When resolved, Philippine revolutionaries declared independence as the revolutionary government of the Philippines. The U.S. used the island nation as a stepping stone to Japan and continental Asia. The Philippine War ensued. America was in control of the Philippines until they were granted full independence on July 4th, 1946. So now I will need to talk about how the American-U.S. colonization of the Philippines had an effect on our culture. First, the education. English favored and taught over Filipino, modeled after U.S. schools instead of combining Filipino values and history told from Filipino perspective. Emergence of numerous Western-oriented nursing schools. Going into film and arts. U.S.-oriented pop culture that influenced Filipino concepts of beauty standards, going into film and arts. US-oriented pop culture that influenced Filipino concepts of beauty standards, storytelling, music, migration, success, relationships, and etc. I'm going to hand it over to Arvik.
Hello. Oh,
Oh.
hello. Thank you so much, Zoe, for that insightful learning about American colonization in the Philippines and like the effects on our culture, you know.
Yes.
So now I am going to be talking about depression in Filipinos and the stigma around it. So before I start, like talking about it, I think it's really important to like actually understand what depression is because I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to talking about this topic. So depression is a mood disorder that causes a persistent feeling of sadness and like pretty much loss of interest. It can also be called major depressive disorder or clinical depression. And essentially, it affects how you feel, think, and behave, and it can lead to a variety of emotional and physical problems. So, a lot of people who are diagnosed with depression may have trouble doing day-to-day activities, and sometimes they like may feel that life isn't just worth living. So like it's more than just about like being sad. Like depression isn't just something you can just like stop doing it, like stop being sad, stop out of it. Like depression may require like long-term treatment, and a lot of people with depression, they can feel better with medication and psychotherapy or even both. So now I'm going to be talking about how this is related to Filipino Americans. So actually, according to the World Health Organization in 2017, they talked about how mental illness is the third most common mental health disorder in the Philippines, where they were able to discover that around 6 million Filipinos are estimated to live with depression or anxiety. And like this number, it's probably like actually underestimated because there's a lot of Filipinos. There's that cultural tendency where Filipinos deny like and just endure the emotional problems rather than like
Yeah.
actually seeking help for it.
Mhm.
So that being said, the cultural tendency of like denying these issues, a lot of people they have barriers when it comes to seeking for help. But let's talk about why do Filipinos
Crazy.
actually have like this like mental health disorders, like because it's like what is there to be depressed about?
Yeah.
Well, because when you think of Filipinos, I feel like a lot of Filipino they think about like happy stuff, it's like family values, like cultural values, like Christmas is like a really big happy like thing, and
Like,
religion as well.
yeah.
But
I know that
12%.
like oh sorry,
Oh
sorry.
no no no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Interrupting you over here. I was just gonna add up to that, like I know that some tourists that go to the Philippines, when they see Filipinos, they think, oh my gosh, they're so happy, like they're always smiling, they're so nice and kind and stuff like that. But like you see this number and you're like, what the heck? Like that's
Right?
crazy,
Like you really
and again,
wouldn't
it's
think a lot of
you
people,
mentioned that it could be like underreported.
right?
Exactly, exactly, and yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry, keep
actually,
going.
so no no no. So 12% in this article that I was reading by Andrea Martinez, they did this whole article on like they were kind of like researching Filipinos when it comes to seeking
Mm,
help for mental health problems and like the barriers
right.
associated with it. But essentially, they
Mm,
found out that 12% of Filipinos living in the US, they suffer from psychological distress. So okay, like we said, like why is this like a thing happening when it comes to Filipinos? So like some issues that could potentially like be reasons for it is there's always the long periods of separation from their families, so this is especially true for Filipino immigrants, and there's that different cultural background that people may have that may make them more prone to like depression and anxiety and substance abuse. And then there's also beauty standards, expectations, and pressures in the family, and like of course financial difficulties when it comes to people like living here. And
mm,
also there's also this like big pressure to be successful, especially as a Filipino immigrant, right?
exactly. I
Yeah.
think a lot of families in the, especially like when you have families in the Philippines that think that um you didn't really work that hard for that money, that you can just have money like that. So there's this pressure from them, like, oh, you have to keep sending this and it. They always come to you, but they don't realize that you're working your butt off, butt off here in the US, and like you're struggling low key at the same time, or like barely making it, and all of that stress can really like mess up your mental health and all
Definitely.
that,
Right, it
you
really
know.
adds up. A lot of things
Yeah.
add up, and you don't even realize that. A lot of people don't realize that it's like affecting them too.
Yeah.
Yep,
Especially with
exactly.
like I said earlier, that cultural tendency to just like keep persevering and just like
Hmm.
go on with it.
Yeah. This is
So
kind of like, um, sorry, this is kind of like, just to like piggyback on your like the beauty standards and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you guys have ever like heard this before, but Filipinos are obsessed with tall noses. I don't know if you
oh
all know that.
really?
Like
Mhm.
the Caucasian nose,
Did not know
we all
that.
Oh,
want that nose. That kind
Mm.
of, because I'm kind of guilty of that low key. Like, oh my gosh, I want your nose, all of that. A lot of that, that's from the where's that? Shoot, I'm blanking out. Hmm. That idea is coming from like the European, the Caucasians. Like it's their nose. Asians are not
Oh,
normally doesn't have that. They don't normally have that kind of nose, and they want that because they see that in the media, all
the
that kind of stuff, which kind of,
Eurocentric beauty standards that Filipinos a lot of
yes,
have,
exactly.
especially when it
yes,
comes to lightening your skin and like you said,
yes,
like
the
the nose
skin
bridges,
whitening.
skin whitening.
Oh my god,
Oh
stores in the
gosh,
Philippines be filled with whitening lotions and stuff.
yeah.
So
And
it's
also,
crazy.
there's that like gossip culture that we have like in the Philippines. Ano tawag? Like
Chismis.
chismis, yeah,
Chismis.
right.
Mga
Like I
Mhm.
hear it a lot
chismosa.
of the time. Like I feel like it's really an issue that like isn't really talked about, but a lot of Filipinos I feel like it's really normalized talking about things that shouldn't be talked about. Like for
Yes.
example, like I don't know how to like word it, but I know like a lot of people would make comments about like people's weight, like, oh, tumataba ka
Yes.
Mhm.
na, right? Like, ang taba mo na, like,
So true.
or like you're so skinny. Like they like say a lot of
Mm-hmm.
comments like that, like as if like
Yes.
it's just like really normalized, and really feel like it shouldn't be,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mhm.
I agree. I agree. I guess that's one of like the toxic parts of our culture.
Hmm.
I think, you know.
Yeah, and these toxic parts
Yeah.
can really lead to a lot of like mental health disorders.
Mental health. Yes.
All right, so I
Exactly.
wanted to talk about the barriers when it comes to seeking help for this mental health disorder, because like I said earlier, like we have that like tendency to just like whatever, just put it away. Um,
Yeah.
so of course, there's that number one thing. It's like financial. Like it's really expensive to seek out for help, or like a lot of
Yes.
people like struggle when it comes to health insurance, and it's also like important to talk about the lack of mental health care access, especially like in the Philippines as well, because it's not really like a thing that like people take seriously, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also the number one thing that was reported to be the most like barrier, like the biggest barrier, was the stigmatized attitude when it comes to mental health when Filipinos want to seek help for their mental health. So there's that social and there's also self stigmatizing attitudes. So social stigma, it's more evident in like their fears of ruining like the negative perception of like Filipino community, because like like I said earlier, when people think of Filipinos, they think of those hardworking Filipinos, and like they don't want to like ruin that, they don't want to
Right.
be like they don't want to ruin their family reputation, and they don't want to like be discriminated or have that like disapproval. And then there's also that
Right.
like self stigma, so like where they just kind of like blame themselves for feeling this way, and they
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's because of them that they feel this way. They start blaming themselves. It's because like I have a weak character, but it's not true. And then
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
there's also like I said earlier, for social, when people in Filipino families, when they want to try and seek help, like I feel like the way parents respond isn't as appropriate as like they should be responding, because there's a lot of people,
Yeah.
parents, where they would respond as like, I didn't raise you like this, or like, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when parents themselves too, they start feeling like at fault that their child's feeling this way, when that's not entirely like, it's not entirely like the truth. That's not why they're feeling that way.
Yep. Well said.
Yeah, and there's also like the way Filipino parents like react, where they say like nasa utak mo lang yon, or like it's just like all in your head.
Mm-hmm. Or
Yeah.
para nag OA ka lang.
Yeah, OA ka lang. Like
Mhm.
they're just like you're being like
Mm,
you're OA like
yes.
I was just
Yeah.
trying to say that when the parents do react that way, it lowers our self-esteem and it makes us not want to like tell them things and
Yeah, exactly. Like
I
there's that
agree.
like lack like there starts to become that lack of communication
yeah.
between like the parents and the kids because they realize like they start understanding, oh, this is how they're gonna react, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So just to,
Yeah.
lighten up the mood, Louise.
Yeah, so I did write a song about depression. I dropped my uke. Oh my god. Anyway, so yes, I wrote a song about depression. I don't have the title because I couldn't think of the title, so I just wrote a depression song. Um, don't come for me for the uke playing because I learned it through a YouTube tutorial. But I'm not that good. I don't only know 4 chords. Anyways, I hope you guys like it. Okay. I woke up in the middle of the night thinking, oh my god, I feel like I'm kinda sinking. Can someone save me, please? Can't get out of bed, no motivation. Please get on my head, it's a bad situation. What is this I'm feeling? Wait, I got depression. Ooh, I got depression. Ooh, I'm your typical Filipina. All this pressure just makes me want to scream. I need your help. I really want to tell my mom and my dad, but they always tell me that I'm just a little sad. Just get over it. Can't get over it, 'cause I got depression. Ooh, I got depression. Ooh. Now I'm seeking treatment for me to do. Open the gate to all of my thoughts and change my point of view. The fear of not being understood is now gone for good. Getting the help that I need, I never thought it would. 'Cause I had depression. Ooh, I had depression. Ooh, don't want depression. Ooh, no more depression. Ooh, depression.
Yay!
Yes, Filipino talent, everybody.
I know, Filipino talent. Yeah.
Hey.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Writing that song was really interesting. I got it from like a lot of the lyrics and stuff like that doesn't just come from like personal experience. It's like from things I hear from my friends as well. Very, very real. Um, but yeah, I'm glad that lightened up the mood a little bit, you know, because it's always easier to take in all the deep ish um
Mhm.
to talk about these type of stuff when it's a little bit, you know, it's not as serious. It's a little easier to swallow, I think. So now that we did that, we're gonna be Kirt and I will be talking about how the U.S. colonization affected Filipino Americans. So Kirt, back to you.
Hello. So after the US colonized the Philippines, it started the mass migration for Filipinos into the United States. Thus, the Filipino Americans were documented. And a fun fact, actually really sad fact, I'm just kidding. Fun fact, the term Pinoy was originally made by Filipinos who came to the US to distinguish themselves from the Filipinos living in the Philippines. And in the beginning, being that there were only so many of them in the US, they created close-knit communities, especially in Hawaii and California, which coincided with a sense of family culture of Filipinos. And many US-born Filipinos acknowledge that English is their primary language. Fluency in the Philippine languages tends to be lost among second and third generation Filipino Americans, and not a lot of families practice speaking their native language at home.
Yep, that is very, very true. I think um, I haven't I barely met any Filipinos here at my school, at the Filipino organization that I'm in, speak Filipino. Does anyone, or not Filipino, speak Tagalog or any Filipino language? Can you guys speak it?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh,
Marunong ka ba? Aha!
Opo.
Opo! Oh my God. Oh my God. Parang matanda. Opo daw.
Opo matang.
Opo,
Yeah, do
tita.
you guys speak? Oh, tita na
Opo
ako.
lola.
Sorry, ate.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Joke lang.
Wow. Wow, ganyan naman. Okay, fine, whatever. Yeah, can you guys speak like different dialects too?
No, just Tagalog.
Yeah. Okay. Marunong ako mag-Tagalog pero mas magaling ako mag-Bisaya. Mas
Oh.
mayo ko mag-Bisaya. Ay, tanan mga Cebuano diha.
Oh.
Hello?
Hey.
Yeah, did your family ever like did they teach you guys Filipino growing up or Tagalog growing up? Like did you guys speak it at home? Is that how you guys learned?
I think yes and no. You know, because I
Yes
started
and no.
school there when I was a little kid, so I kind of like grasped the language, so I could speak both.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm
Oh, you
actually
started
the same
school there?
way.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. Oh, okay, cool. Zoe, can you at least understand Tagalog?
yeah, I can understand roughly. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, no, it's
good.
okay.
You know, that honestly, at least you know that much. At least you know you're not gonna get mugged in the Philippines. You know, they can't like
Mm-hmm.
try something. So that's good.
Exactly.
So another thing to kind of add with what Kirt was saying, with like how the U.S. colonization affected Filipino Americans, I feel like many Filipino Americans nowadays, not all of them, but many of them do feel very, very privileged. Like uh, a lot of them has lost that sense of family, like that's very, very like important in our culture. And I think they get that from like this American mentality where I only care about myself, I gotta be successful myself, and also like a lot of them only care about their own successes and stuff. So if uh they see other Filipinos succeed, they kind of see it as a threat because it's a competition for them. Again, very, very American mentality. Like, it's always a competition and stuff. I don't know. Have you guys had any like um experience with this specifically?
Yeah, no, that's really true. Like, it becomes like a lot more competitive and like more toxic as well too. No.
Yeah. So let me see. Have you guys ever like uh I don't know. I think I'm just adding drama now. Have you guys like ever had to cut off people because of that specific mentality before? Very
I think
competitive
so. Yes.
mentality.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah,
definitely.
It
Like
just started to get toxic, and I didn't want to like
mhm.
associate myself with that. I want
mm-hmm.
to feel at peace
Yeah,
in myself. You know.
exactly.
Yeah, I think
Exactly.
it's like because I feel like a lot of like people we just like start comparing ourselves to each other, and
Yes.
that's why it
Yes.
becomes so toxic and competitive.
Mm, exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, I love my fellow Filipinos, but like, yeah, I've met a few of those type of people and had to cut off a few people too because of that. It's I wish that wasn't true, but it'd be like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
um,
It's really just the cultural differences when it comes to like growing up. Like especially a lot of like
yes, yeah,
US born Filipinos versus Filipino immigrants where they just really
Mm,
have different values and like beliefs. Like I feel like
yeah.
growing
yeah,
up.
yep, yep. I think the again like the U.S. born have a more American mentality, the very individualistic
Yeah.
mentality.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Mhm.
But I have a best
Um,
friend that's born here, and I'm glad she's not like that. I'm glad she values Filipino values and
good.
like has that
Love that.
family connection. So I'm
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, honestly, at the end of the day, it all comes down to the parents and how they raise their kids, or how they
Exactly.
raise them, whether they want them to to uh be engaged in the Filipino culture. Because some families don't do that. Like once they move here, they're like, oh, why do we need to do that? That
Hmm.
kind of coincides with the language as well. We're already here. English is what we're talking about. So yeah.
Thank you everyone for taking the time out of your day to listen to our podcast. Please go check out the workshop this Friday that Miss Nicole and Miss Francis are hosting, talking about depression. I hope you guys all enjoyed Luis's Happy Depression song, and I hope you guys all have a great day.
Thank
Thank you
you.
guys.
Bye
Thank
Thank
bye.
you.
you.
Here's in the
And then
gang
we're
Salamat.
again.
going to
Here.
be putting
Salamat.
links, resources to
Exactly. Please take
Workshop.
stuff.
advantage of them.
Kung wala